Welcome to A Moment with Vivacious, a freedom ride where we the people gather to build ourselves, our family, our community, and our nation. For the sound of America for Progress has reached critical mass. Understanding that we must put aside our differences to focus on the greater good. This is a place of collaboration to rebuild and restore our nation. Welcome to A Moment with Vivacious. Hello, good evening, and welcome to A Moment with Vivacious. Look, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. Of course, like and share, because we're talking about one of the most important topics to take us to a positive future, and that's our children. And tonight we have with us Miss Ebony Stewart, and we're talking about building a stronger, better life for our kids. It is so much needed. It's so different now, today, and when I was raising my children. We're 3 generations apart tonight. Welcome, Ebony, to A Moment with Vivacious.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
Great. I just wanted the guests to know the fact that today we differ from the east to the west, like the east is as far from the east as the west, but we've learned to come together and understanding one another and developing. And when we're talking about our children and developing a way to get along, those two worlds collided, and now we have some agreement, and that's the big thing, and that's one of the main reasons that I wanted you to be here tonight, because your insight on raising kids today, it stops me from having a heart attack when I see some of the stuff. Introduce yourself, Ebony.
I'm Ebony, and I am a mom of 3. I have a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and an 11-year-old. All are different, so it's a learning process, but it has been a great joy learning them and parenting my babies. So,
Well, I want, if we can, it's no certain order that I can think of when we're talking about our children. But one of my greatest problems, can we talk about that? Because I'm grandmother. Um, and sometimes I have to just look and take a deep breath, okay, and just remember what year it is, even. So I want to talk about these mouths y'all raising. My heavens, if I had answered my grandmother the way some of these kids, it's like, I guess we're talking here about boundaries, Ebony. What do you have to say about that?
I've always allowed my to express themselves as long as it's in a respectful manner. But then my mom was also the same way. She was very big on allowing us to speak, to voice our opinions, and to validate our feelings. It didn't mean that it changed her stance. It didn't mean that it changed what she said or told us to do. But she did allow us to voice our opinions, allowed us to communicate and state how we felt and why. So I think it's very important for us to allow our children to have a voice to say how they're feeling and what's going on with them, because we tell them to be quiet and then we wonder why they don't come and talk to us, or why they're going and dealing with suicidal thoughts or whatever and not communicating with you. But when they are trying to express their feelings, we've stifled them because we don't like the way that they've tried to express them. So I think it's very important to find a way to communicate with your children, regardless of, whether you agree with what they're saying or how it's coming out. you have to be able to communicate with them and allow them to communicate their feelings and what's going on with them.
Well, I agree with what you're saying 100%. But I do not agree with a child going one on me. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with um, tone.
Mm-hmm.
Tone when you talk. I am your grandmother. I'm not your equal. I'm not your friend. I'm your mother. We were raised with I'm your mother. You're gonna have an opportunity to speak, but if I'm speaking, don't you speak. We're not going one on one.
Right. I I agree with that. I also feel like too, it also depends on what you model. So like if your child sees you yell and go from 0 to 100 when you're upset, how you communicate with them, that's how they're gonna communicate back with you. So then you're wondering, why is my child yelling back with me, or why is their voice elevated, or why are they excited? But it's a learned behavior because that's how you communicated with them when you're upset with them or when something's going on. So a lot of times, it's, in my opinion, it's not fair to get upset with them because their voice is elevated when that's the behavior that you modeled for them and they're just mimicking what they've seen. So I
Well,
think,
as a young mother, and this is why we separated those generations. But as a young mother, and even when you were growing up, if your mom is correcting you, did you speak then? If I'm saying, look, you're gonna do blah 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 blah, because I'm correcting you, that
I was
child gets answer. That child gets it.
I was definitely my mom's child that had to have the last word. So that
I'm
was
sorry, I can't hear you. Can you speak a
I was
little?
I was definitely my mom's child who had to have the last word. And so I've definitely been blessed with a child that has the last word. And sometimes I have to just sit back and laugh because I'm like, Ebony, she got it, honestly. You can't even be upset. But those are things, it's teachable moments. So those are things that I pause, let her calm down, and then I correct her. We'll work on that. And I just point out, hey, I've worked on using my voice when I talk to you. So I need you. I know you're upset or you're excited, but maybe you need to go take a few minutes and calm down, and then you can come back and talk to me when you're able to talk calmly. If you can't talk calmly, then we can't finish this conversation. So I think that's what has worked for me and her, but she definitely got it, honestly, because I was
And how does that work with other adults?
um other adults are not so receptive to it, because it's just how they were brought up, a child stay in a child's place. They shouldn't be yelling. They don't have, a right to be upset, but like they're little people, they're humans too. So they get emotions just like we do. So I don't know why we feel like as an adult, we have the right to be upset, but children don't have the right to be upset. And we punish them for expressing the same emotions that we have. And I think sometimes we forget to pause. Like, we've learned how to regulate our emotions, and they're still trying to figure out how to. So it's our job in that moment not to necessarily punish them, but to help them regulate their emotions in that moment. It's a teachable moment. It's not to punish them.
Well, needless to say, I especially if it's a moment of correction, I
Mm-hmm.
totally disagree with that,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm going to be upset that you did such and such a thing, especially if I've told you so many times, don't do it. And no matter the circumstance, don't you ever raise your voice to me. So it's almost like, for me, and maybe somebody else out there might um, think something different. I'm learning how to deal with it, though. I'm learning, I'm learning how to deal with it, but to handle it differently. But it's never going to be okay. It's never going to be okay to me for a child to stand toe to toe with an adult, no matter the situation, because somebody has to be the leader. Somebody has to be the adult. You know, I think that leadership and boundaries, and tell me what you think about that. I think leadership and boundaries are almost invisible. Like, who do you think you're talking to?
Right. So then is it really a matter of you feel of boundaries and leadership, or are you, so I feel like when you get into the power struggle and you start saying, oh well, I'm the adult and you don't yell at me, I feel like then it completely um eliminates what is going on with the child in that moment, because their frustration comes out in, you know, like their anger, because they're not able to regulate their feelings. So it's not
Well, they
necessarily
sure better learn how to regulate those feelings,
right,
and they
but
better learn how to act. And
it's a
they
two
better, you know,
for us. So it's
I'm
a moment,
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
you know, it's a moment for us to teach them and not necessarily punish and be upset about how they are responding to us. Because if we catch an attitude and get to no, and I'm the adult and we get into that power struggle, then a lot of times kids shut down and they don't continue to communicate. And then that's how you lose the lack of communication, where kids don't even tell you what's wrong or what's going on with them. And they're not receptive to what you're trying to correct.
I'm seeing the foundation of hello to everyone who's joining us. Thank you and welcome for joining in, and we're welcome. And the person who said I agree with you, I'm glad you're on my side. But I think that okay, power struggle. What the heavens? Because you know I want to say the other part, other place you could go. I don't want to say heaven. I want to say the other place. There's no power struggle between me and my child, or me and my I'm saying grandchild. I don't have these. One time my granddaughter said to me something that made me cross my eyes and say, "Jesus, get her out the way." But there's no power struggle between the adult and the child. The adult is the authority. I don't care where you are. You have to have a leader. And where do we think these little children, they're not born with wisdom. They have to grow to get the wisdom. They're not as wise as me. They're not going to make decisions. I love this conversation. They're not going to make, they don't have the wisdom to make the decisions that you guys leave for them to make. When they going to get the wisdom? Because we having a power struggle, me and you, 20 years your elder, we're having a power struggle. Ebony?
Um, I I don't know. I just feel like
That's okay. You don't have to agree.
I just feel there's a way to say things, there's a way to do things. And I just don't think it's always necessarily, I feel like when we say because I'm the adult, then that you go back to the do as I say, not as I do. And then are we modeling the behavior that we want them to exhibit, to mimic? So we have to be the example that we want our kids to be. So we're technically like we're getting upset that our kids are demonstrating the behavior that they've seen us demonstrate. But we feel like because they're children, they should not be doing that. And because we're the adult and we told them not to, that they should just listen and not do it. And I don't think, especially now with this generation, that definitely does not fly or go over well with them. Just my opinion, but
Wait, do as I say. For me, do as I say and not as I do. I think that's totally separate. I'm gonna go to it for a minute. The daddy can't be there smoking weed and looking at porno with their children and then say, "You don't do this."
exactly.
That's you don't be with your children and say, "I'm tired waiting in line and I'm gonna steal out the store." You don't do this. You don't disrespect your mom. I'm speaking about the parents now. Because sometimes I think I think that you guys want to get far away from what we did, but y'all need to go get some of that stuff. You just don't do that. They have to see you operate in integrity to have integrity.
I agree.
For me, that's the do as I do as I say, but not as I do. That's not gonna work right there.
I agree on that part.
But when I give you instructions and say don't do that, you don't turn around and tell me what you're gonna do and why you're not gonna do it. That's not okay with me. Okay, because I don't have to come in, especially if you're a certain age, from work, taking care of you these days, man. Y'all gotta have a cell phone bill for each of the children. They gotta get their nails and their hair done. They need electronic devices. Like you gotta pay for them. Like you gotta pay for them to have activities. You can't just say y'all go outside and play. You can't. That's a hindrance to me, to a parent. Look, y'all go outside and play because you knew everybody was gonna be all right. Somebody's mama was gonna give drinks. Somebody's mama was gonna give food. Somebody was gonna do something. But that's way back when I was growing up. Because I didn't even let my child go out. Like she did go out, but not like not like that. But so talking about the two things, like do as I say and not as I do, and follow my and I'm labeling, follow my instructions whether you like it or not is what I said, and this is how it's gonna go down because this is the rule of the house. To me, that's two different things. Let me hear your raw opinion.
So I feel like you can't shut your child down, but then tell them you need to communicate with me and tell me how you feel or what's going on with you, because you haven't demonstrated nor have you set up a safe place for them to come to you to talk to you. So growing up, we had 1,000 family meetings and I absolutely hated it. Like, I was like, Mom, we have to talk again. Why are we having another family? Like, I absolutely did not like it, just because I felt like, when you're young, you feel like it's a waste of time. You don't want to talk about nothing. Oh, it's repetitive. Why are we doing this? But as I'm older, I can appreciate it because one, not only did it give us a space to be able to express why we didn't like doing what we were doing, to feel like we had an input on house rules, when things in the house weren't going correctly. Like you said, if she's coming home and the house is out of order and she's made sure dinner was done before she went to work because she knew she was going to come home a little later and she wanted dinner ready for us and we're still not part, that was the time for us to sit down and for her to express to us, hey, I'm doing XYZ. This is how this makes me feel when you don't do this. Is there something that I need to do to help you, or what is it that you feel needs to be changed in order for you to be able to do what it is that you need to do? So I think that it still goes back to you have to demonstrate and you have to incorporate the things that you're wanting your kids to exhibit. You can't yell at them when you're upset, and then when they get upset and they yell, or when they throw stuff because they've seen you throw stuff, then you're like, well, why are they in here tearing my
But they
house
better
up?
not throw no stuff up in my house. What?
Right, I agree, but
Nola, can you read that comment for me?
if that's what they've seen you and Daddy do, then you can't be upset when they
Yes,
do.
I will be. Yes, I will be. You're not grown. You're not paying no bills up in here.
With their parents.
Good evening, everyone. So Von Bros wants to know, so what about the parents who never yell? Are they still in a power struggle with their children? It says parents, but I'm believing that's supposed to be children.
I don't think the act of yelling is not where the power struggle comes in. I feel like the power struggle is like when you're going forth with your child over something instead of communicating, because you're trying to exert and you're trying to say, I'm the parent. This is, like, and you don't validate their feelings. A lot of times kids just want to be heard and they just want their feelings validated. They're okay. I tell my kids all the time, we can talk about it. It probably is not going to change what you guys have to do. It may not even change how I feel on things. Sometimes it does, but it won't. It may not. But the fact that I've given them that opportunity to talk, voice their feelings, and to validate, those are valid reasons. I get it. I understand. But this is why I need you to do X, Y, Z. We are communicating effectively. So therefore, we're not getting in that back and forth. But I don't want to do it, and I don't think it's fair. And I'm saying, well, I don't care because that's where the power struggle comes in. Not necessarily the act of yelling is not the power struggle. I think when you can't effectively communicate.
Ebony?
Yes.
Of course, people know our job, but disclaimer, this is no professional advice. This is conversation on how generations can come together to build a greater tomorrow for our kids. The more you give those little children, the more space they're going to take. And the last 30 days on our job, how many children came in for fighting their mama? Because she took the cell phone away because she wanted to set boundaries.
That's because
I believe when you do not, this is my opinion, when you do not draw the line, I am the mother. Somebody has to be the leader. Like they have the president of the country, they have the generals in the military. You have to have a leader, or where in the world you're going, you have nothing but confusion. Nowadays, we have children fighting their mom, fighting their dad. I never saw so many daddies crying like, what in the world? But that's a whole nother conversation. So let me stay over here with the little children, okay? Because I want to talk about that too. Because it's like, if I could just say this little piece, and if it don't have anything to do with what we're talking about, just go back to our conversation. But parents who don't take that place of authority end up toe-to-toe with their children. End up like the children they do the same thing in the classroom. That's why so many teachers have to fight in the classroom, because there's no authority at home. Nobody has taken that place at home. Don't get me wrong. We had, not only did I have, Nola was my only child. We had meetings in the house, but there were children who was always frequenting our houses, and they had to come to the family meeting too. They had to come to the prayer time. They had to come to meal time 2 or 3 days a week, where I insisted that everybody, we eat together, we pray together, we can have conversations. That's the only way we're going to know one another. But if I'm correcting you, you better close your mouth, and you better not talk when I'm talking. But I'm so sorry. Tell me what you have to say there.
No, I definitely agree with that. My thing is this: if you set boundaries with your child from the very, that's from even as babies. If you talk to babies, I just think that there's steps. When you talk, no, don't do that. Like, they listen. So if you have set boundaries and set that foundation with your child from the beginning, it's not even a fear thing. It's respect. My son is 17. He's 300 pounds, over 6 feet tall. But I can look at my son and be like, Eris, stop now. And he will stop it, and he will go sit down, because it's a respect. And he wouldn't even dare, although he can whoop me if he really wanted to, because of his size. He's never even attempted that, but it's a respect thing because of boundaries that I've set with him from birth up until now. So I feel like parents think things are cute. They don't set those boundaries. Kids become a certain age and they try to set these boundaries, or they try to tell them what they can or cannot do. And then the kid is like, what? You've been letting me do whatever all this time, so why am I going to do that now? So now it's too late. because they're like, what are you doing? So no, they're not. They have no respect for you. So it's a respect thing. I don't even think it's a fear thing. I don't want my kids to ever fear me, but I definitely want them to respect me. So my kids definitely respect me. You know, like they joke. My mom will, yeah, I will if I have to, but I've never had to just truly just take my child out because they know I don't play, and it's a respecting. That's my mom. Are they perfect kids? No. Have I had to be like, don't talk back to me? Absolutely. But they still have that level of respect to where there's just certain things they absolutely are never going to try to do when it comes to me and when it comes to discipline.
And I think that we're speaking of kids and obedience, in the topic that we're talking about now, I think we also can talk about somebody said we need more boundaries.
She said that we must set boundaries, and I said absolutely.
Okay. Parents, some parents these days are buying are thinking things taking the place of them raising their kids. It's always my kids have more stuff. My kids have to have more stuff. And are they negating parenting? Or is it that they just don't want to be parenting or don't understand that? Wait a minute.
You feel
It don't come with rules, So
you feel
what
like
you say about that?
materialistic things now instead of.
Can you speak a little louder, please?
I said, do
I'm
you
sorry.
overcompensate with materialistic things instead of parenting time nowadays?
I think it's all these phones is like way out of control. Like why I understand why I would be afraid for my child. My child, and then we could go to another subject from this. If I had a child now, and I even with Nola, I said when my grandson, I think he was like 8, I said, but he has to have a phone because things are like us outside the bus stop could be dangerous. It's just so dangerous for children now. They have to have a way to communicate. So I understand about that phone deal, but sometimes that go way too far with this phone thing. And understanding that those phones have the internet that leave your children exposed to the whole world and all types of dangerous things to them. Now, let me tell you this. My granddaughter always tell me, Nana, you always think somebody trying to steal us. And Ebony, I feel like, yes, there are. There's somebody out there trying to steal you. I don't know. I've met the child trafficking. So tell me about that phone thing. What, being a mother in a phone generation, being a mother, I thank God my daughter was graduating from high school when she got a phone. But let's talk about the phone thing. I can't address that. I'm the grandmother with the phone.
So my thing, my girl's father is very protective of them, and I've had to, like when it comes to social media and stuff like that, and what I've had to tell him is we are in an age of social media. If we say no and we say don't do that, we can't protect them when they're at school, if they go to a friend's house and they have it. So my goal as a mom is not to say, no, you can't have access to it. No, you can't do that. My goal is to help them navigate it safely, to set boundaries and guidelines and talk to them about that to make sure they're not on there making friends with people, or they know how to utilize it in a healthy and a safe manner. Because if we say no, 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 and then they're sneaking off and they're doing it, and then they haven't had the guidelines, or they haven't been given parameters on how to use it, then what? And I trust my kids for the most part when given parameters and guidelines and rules on what to do. They follow them. because they want to be able to have their phone. They want to be able to still, do what it is that they want to do. So they're like, let me follow the rules that they've set in place or the guidelines. So I just feel like as parents, it's not going anywhere. And they're exposed to so much. And there's just things that I would rather talk to my kids about as opposed to them sneaking or talking to it with the rest of their clueless friends.
We agree on that one.
They
And
don't
that brings us to a conversation we had recently. I'm gonna talk about dating. I'm gonna go backwards. We're gonna talk about dating and the poor little kids, the poor little children. For me, y'all young people don't understand this stuff here is whoop, like the things that the little children are exposed to. We just had this conversation just a couple of days ago about what age do you date, except that they don't have what age now.
Right.
But I want to go backwards. I want to talk about at what age and how do we define um, dating at this generation as the children are growing at today.
My 14-year-old is in high school. I feel like high school is the age where they all start dating. So she calls herself having a boyfriend. But as a mom, my goal is to observe her and watch her. Are her boundaries safe? Are her interactions with him safely? I don't mind him coming over. Like, I'd rather know than for me to be like, oh no, you can't have no boyfriend, and then she's out sneaking. I've talked to all my friends, co-workers and stuff, and the consensus is I wasn't able to have a boyfriend, I think they said, until like 16, 17, 18. But no one followed their parents' rules, and everyone was still sneaking out, dating boys and having boyfriends. They just couldn't do it to where their parents knew. They couldn't bring boys to their parents' house. And I just feel like, why would I not allow whoever my child is interested in to come and be in a safe environment? I know my environment is safe. So why would I not bring them into my home to where I can talk to them about whatever they have going on so that I can monitor what's going on? They've gone on a movie date and I sit right there in the movies with them. So I have no problem with doing that because I just feel like they're in high school. They're going to do it, and as a parent, like, this is what you do. So I can either be like, no, no, no. And then she does it anyways behind my back. But why create a space or an environment to where my child has to lie to me? Because there's things that they want to do that aren't harmful. I mean, it's, to me, in my eyes, it's not a harm because she had 4 years and then she's going to be out of my house.
So let me ask you this. She's going to be out of your house, but let me just warn you. They go away and they come back with more people. So
yes, absolutely. Listen, my mom still has not gotten rid of me. I might be in it, but parenting never stops. That's a lifetime thing.
Absolutely not. I wouldn't have it no way.
Right.
I told my daughter when she was 5, you're my baby now, and when you're 45, you'll still be my baby. And she's
right.
the only baby I have, and I mean that. Nola, what do you have to say?
You love my extra people.
I said, excuse me, you love my extra people. Let's not do that. You love my extra people. Just to highlight some comments for you.
Okay.
Von Bro say, but kids can be validated and are still disrespectful, and that carries outside of the home. And now they're getting into issues with authority figures. Miss Patricia stated, yes, that's so true when you guys were talking about setting boundaries. And she also said we must set boundaries.
Okay.
I think when kids are still getting in trouble outside the home, though, they're not being validated. If a child is a parent, this is what I feel like parents have to figure out. How does what makes your child feel validated? Because sometimes it's almost like finding out what their love language is, because sometimes we can feel like we're validating our child because we're providing for them, because we're giving them things, because we're taking them on trips, because we're allowing them freedoms, or because we talk, but sometimes that's not what it is that they're needing or that they're wanting. So I feel like you have to be intentional about finding out, how do you validate your child, or how do you make them feel secure to where they are not going out and acting out. Because Belinda, a lot of times when we talk to these, we have some kids who are just out of it, but for the most part, when there's children who are acting out, there's like a deeper, like it's a deep issue that, and a simple issue that if a parent, and a lot of times it's something that only the parent can correct or fix, because they're really just wanting the attention and the love and the validation from their parent. So I just feel like you have to really, really find out what it is that your child is needing, and every child is different. You can't validate every child the same.
Well, let me break that up into pieces. Nola, I'm sorry, I'm going to expose a little bit of our business here. I did not find out until months ago, I'll say maybe a year, that my daughter thought I didn't like her. That just like, what? Girl, you my world, you all I ever had. Well, once I had it, she was all I ever had. I had nothing before that. But it's like, what? I didn't find that out. But how dare, till this day, she respects what I say as a mother. Mm-hmm. And she'll politely, when she don't agree, get into calm her little self down into this quiet voice to say, "My mama talk to you later." The children calling me, but I know that means I'm gonna keep respecting you, mom, and I'm gonna hang up. But being that said, it was when she was a child that she thought I did not like her, but she was never in a place of disrespecting me or other adults.
Because you had set those boundaries and those expectations in her.
Exactly. I think some of what happens is children know their parents better than anybody else. They know just how far they can go. Mm-hmm. You remember when you were young, you would say, "No, if I do this, I know my daddy don't want me to do it. My daddy raised me. So I know my daddy don't want me to do this. What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to me if I do it? What's the worst thing that could happen to me?" Because I knew my daddy's level of correction.
I'm taking consequences.
Then some children, they get out with other kids whose parents are not raising them, or they're just gonna do what they're gonna do, and it's not right. We have so many teachers that's walking off from teaching schools because the children are disrespectful. If they don't do nothing, they say they just let them fight. If they do something, they were handling the children. So they stuck in a place, and it got to be better than this. And I think somewhere down the line, we got to get a hold to this stuff. Oh, where are our children gonna be? I don't remember who it was that made that song. What about the children? And to ignore is so easy. And Ebony and I just to let our audience know, Ebony, I'm like, oh, Ebony, I can't tell y'all the things I say when we by ourselves, okay? I'm not gonna say it like that. It's not those parents all the time. Ebony always want to blame the parents. Oh no, I'm not hearing that. I'm not trying to hear it. It is not these parents, these bad but children, but I said A word. These bad but children, blah, 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 blah. These children, I don't know where some of them getting it from because it's not their home. These children, Ebony, we have to, I remember one little boy told me, "You have to earn my respect." I said, "Let me tell you something, son. with my teeth together. I said, let me tell you something, son. When you're disrespectful, no matter who I or anybody else is, you're just a disrespectful little boy. Even if I'm mean and disrespectful to you, if you're a respectful little boy, then you're respectful. Do not let anybody else's actions control who you are. Sometimes I wish the little children would just stand there and be quiet. You don't have to have something to say. But we're back to that part, and I don't want to go back to that part. So let's go back to children totally out of order. Like you wouldn't see the things that you see today.
And what is
You
the
wouldn't
most
see the child fight the teacher like
common
that.
issue that they come in there? The teenagers are always acting out because their cell phones were taken. And the younger ones always, it's because I don't like to be told no. I've never heard, I was just, that's what is usually the issue with them.
Can you, as a mother of teenagers, I remember once we went to dinner, and I wanted my grandkids to talk to me, and so the one who's closest to me is the one who wanted the phone the most, right? So I had to wait for a special moment when she was kind of like not paying attention and snatched the phone. And so then the other two just gave me their phones. And that was the only way we would have conversation. If I would have said, give me the phone, I don't think I would have gotten the phone that easily. What in the world are we going to do? How do we limit? And then I don't know if we could do anything about that, but just say one more thing about that phone, Ebony, and about children just totally out of control fighting their parents. That's unheard of.
I can't relate to the phone issue because my girls were without a phone for almost a year because they felt they weren't taking care of them, and iPhones are not cheap. So when I feel like replacing it, since you don't feel like taking care of it, then that's how we're going to do this. And when I acted the same way that they were treating them phones, they got it together. And so they know if they don't have a phone, they just don't have a phone. If I take a phone, I just take a phone. So I'm not sure the whole phone issue and them just going crazy over phones. I don't understand it at all. I feel like I was about to say something and it slipped my mind on that.
Oh, she's getting her thoughts. Just cut me off if your thoughts come back. Anybody in the audience have any suggestions about that phone? What are we going to do about these phones and the connections that they make through the improper connections that our children make with these phones?
Yes. But Vaughn, a lot of times it is a learned behavior. Like
what did Vaughn say? I'm sorry.
He said, and that's what I'm talking about. On a broader scope, many kids are dealing with teachers, police, and other adults the same way that they speak to their parents. So that's what I'm talking about. A lot of times, though, Vaughn, parents are just as crazy as their kids are acting. Like the parents are no better. Like we talk to parents and then we're like, oh, I see why your child is acting out this way or why your child is doing this, because the parents are out of control. So that's why what I'm saying, like it goes back to parents being the example that they want their kids to mimic. Like I need to be, if I want my kids to work, have a good job, not be in the streets, then I have to create a stable environment for my child. Like kids aren't in stable environments. Parents are yelling when they get upset. Parents are just as out of control talking to teachers when they go to the school to find out a problem. And so they see this behavior and they're mimicking this behavior. So we always get upset at these kids and say that these kids are out of control and they're just bad and all this. but they got this behavior from somewhere. And a lot of times the behavior came from the adults in their environment. They don't have a good village. Their village is failing them. And so if the village is failing them, we can't be upset at these kids who are still learning. They're still in the learning process. And so when we get out of control kids, if I can easily redirect that kid, or I can love on that kid and their behavior changes, that's how I know at home something just is amiss or something is not there, because they're easily redirected. So
we might have to bring the belt back in the mix, Ebony. I know you don't want to hit.
Sometimes it's needed. Sometimes I will agree, sometimes it's needed, but sometimes, you don't always have to whoop on them.
I really wanna talk about growth and development.
Okay.
I think a part of this being missed is a big part of our problem, where there's no lines drawn. We knew what we were allowed to do at 6. I'll just say this: when they set the table, I'm from New Orleans, so we always had wine to drink, okay? But I was mad when I got grown and I found out when we were the little children at the baby table they put water in our wine. What? So my grandmother had a big set of glasses, different sizes. The 4-ounce cups went to our table for our sweet vino, Gallo sweet vino. So, we had wine, and then as you grew up, your glass got bigger and you got less water in your wine. I found that out. So, at a certain age, you didn't wear no high heel shoes. You didn't wear your hair hanging down. You got some curls for special events. You got your hair combed until you became a certain age. You weren't allowed to wear certain clothes or fishnet stockings until fishnet stockings was for bad ladies. So you had to be big and they had to be able to handle that at a certain age. Now I see the little babies with the weave holding and breaking their necks over. It's like, children do not get an adult conversation. Your children could talk about everything, but don't know how to talk about anything. We had that conversation just the other night. What happened to the growth and development in the age, and at this age you do? They have nothing to look forward to because they do everything. Well, of course, if your mama half naked, don't get me wrong, I don't have none now, but I had my mini skirts. It was hot pants when I was coming up, baby. And when I was old enough to buy them, my daddy said, when you're old enough to buy them, you're old enough to have them. So when I was old enough to buy them, I had my hot pants and my mini dresses. But this half naked, I can you address I know my age, I know where I'm at. But we got to see what are they gonna grow into when they could have everything, and the mama got the little stuff on and she done bought the baby size stuff. Just talk to me about that.
My girls are really, they're like tennis shoe girls. Like my 14-year-old, well, yeah, my 11-year-old, like they'll.
I'm sorry. We got to come out of your house because they're not going to fit in this one. I know your girl. I mean, as a mom, as general. We're talking general.
So, my girls like to wear braids. And their dad, he does not like the long braids to the butt, but that is how they like to wear them, and that's how I allow them to express themselves. If they want to wear them, that she braids her hair and she wants to wear them that way, then I don't see a problem with it. Now my issue, this is why I'm not concerned with it, because both of them are still they're not boy crazy. They're not out there doing stuff that they like have no business doing. They still like, they're still little girls. They're
But that's
still
why I said let's not use them because they're not grown. You know what
true.
I'm saying? They're not grown.
So
They would not speak to me with their hands on their hips.
right. I just think it goes back to the environment that a kid is raised in. Some of these girls do it out of necessity. Some of them do it because that's how their moms have groomed or raised them and they think it's cute. So at the end of the day, like we're mad at these little girls, but yet who's buying their clothes? You know what I'm saying? Like who's who's buying bundles? So we can say that they're being grown, but I don't think it's necessarily them being grown, it's fashion. So I think I always say, and another reason why I don't get upset when I see it is because if you look at like old school fashion, if you go back to the 70s and you go back to like the 80s and stuff, like them little girls was wearing them hot pants and them shorts and them mini skirts and them knee-high socks. Stuff that now is very sexualized and you wouldn't even put on a little girl because you'd be like, oh no, that's too grown. But yet if you go pull up the Brady Bunch, them outfits that them little girls had on, if we put it on our little girls now, everyone would have a fit. So I just feel like fashion makes a complete turn, and it just depends on, as long as your child, and we have to stop sexualizing girls. I think we have to stop sexualizing kids, period, and allow them to be kids, because sometimes like a dress doesn't make them older just because you don't agree, you feel like it's too tight. Long hair doesn't make them grown just because you feel like it shouldn't be that long because it's not naturally theirs. So what about the child that has naturally long hair? Do we say put it up? Why doesn't that make them grown when we straighten or allow them to wear their hair down? So sometimes kids, she has long hair, mom, I want long hair like her. You know what I'm saying? She has natural. So sometimes kids just want what other kids have, and it's innocent. It really has nothing to do with trying to be too grown or trying to grow up too fast. It's oh, this is the fashion, and they're not even in their mind thinking about, oh, it's making me look grown or whatever. So I think as adults, sometimes we have to relax a little bit and stop calling little
Well, I
girls.
don't think we can relax with the sexual thing because sex starts now. They got the women doing the commercials in their underwear. You know, like nothing is private. There's no boundaries. Life. I'm speaking generally. Life
Right.
has no boundaries. Now, your girls are tall. They're big. They're not babies.
Mm-hmm.
We pulling them over. I'm talking about the child can't stand up and got weed. What's up?
So let's talk about that. So
Another rule I had. I want to say this too.
Okay.
Because another rule I had, even as a teenager. Like I said, Daddy said when you could buy it, you could wear it. When I was a teenager, you didn't have upstairs and downstairs hanging out. You had to have upstairs or downstairs. If you have a mini skirt and the long socks and you going to church, but they don't even go to church anymore. So let me I think that's where we're missing a lot of stuff too. But anyway, but go ahead. That was
So,
like. Mm-hmm.
I feel so when it comes to body shape. So I have girls who, for their ages, their bodies definitely are very more mature. So my goal as a mom is to teach them how to dress it appropriately. It's not to make them feel ashamed of their body, because their curves, they're never going to be able to hide them. It's not to, huh?
I said, who wants to? Who want to hide their curves? That's the whole part of the curves.
But my girls have been dress coded, and I definitely don't allow them to go to school crazy. My 11-year-old was dress coded in 5th grade. She's taller than everyone else, so she has longer legs, but I'm not going to make my baby walk around in oversized shorts or basketball shorts because her legs are longer. So because her legs are longer, they come to the same point as everyone else's shorts that are walking around here. Her butt is not hanging out, but to you, because she has longer legs, they seem shorter. So I had to literally go up there, and I was like, I know you're not dress coding her for this. This is ridiculous. And I
What
literally,
is
like,
dress code?
she can bend over. If nothing is hanging out, if no, leave her alone. I have had to go up to the school and for my 14-year-old in 7th grade, because they said her pants, well, the way that they look on her, they would not look the same on someone who is chubby. But because my daughter is not chubby, my daughter has a small waist, my daughter has hips and butt, she's very curvy. So because on her it would look nice and it was fitting, but she was dress coded because it looked too much like it was bell bottom, they were bell bottom pants. So and I was like, she's being dress coded for this. And I know I've seen someone slender with the same pants on, but because she wasn't skinny and she wasn't slim and she has curves, she was dress coded for it. So I think a lot of times we sexualize and we punish our girls for things that they can't even control. And
well, I think if and you and I, this is a big one, okay? If the dress code for the school says this, and they've passed the papers out for the dress code, if bell bottoms was against the dress code, then
they weren't.
Okay.
It was the fact of how they fit on her, and because they fit her, because she's more curvy, then they were too fitting. So therefore, she was dress coded.
So
However,
bell bottoms wasn't listed in the code.
No, it was the way that they fit her. Because I specifically asked her, and so what they said to me was, because I was confused. I said they're not leggings, they're bell bottoms. I said they're fitted, yes. She said if we allowed her to walk around in these, she said then if someone bigger than her thought that she should wear this and it doesn't look as nice on her, then that's the reason. And someone smaller than her, though, they were like, it doesn't fit the same on someone smaller. So because she is girls who are curvier, they get dress coded on certain things, although it's not part of the school dress code. They do dress code them due to their body shapes. And these girls can't help that they are shaped. So I'm like, now we're having to they have to wear baggy clothes because you feel like their curves shouldn't be showing. They can't help that they're curvy.
And this brings up a subject to me, but I know I can say this to you. And I sure hope you didn't have this conversation in front of your daughter and the teacher.
Oh, no.
Because I think that's a big problem in the school too. When parents have a problem, they want to correct the teacher in front of the child, which takes all of the teacher's authority.
Right.
Which takes all of the teachers. One day the teacher punched me in my back. I didn't know till I was grown. My mom almost had a fight with that lady. Because my mama knew if she was wise enough to understand that you can't correct the adult in front of the children. Right. People want you to keep their children, but then they want to correct the adult in front of the children, and that's an issue.
I agree. There's a right and there's a wrong way to do everything. I do agree with that. Absolutely.
So we understand that we somehow, and I understand that you have a problem, but it's not in my opinion, it's not we sexualizing the little girls. It's the world has sexualized them. I would be afraid if I had a daughter going to school with her. You don't know who's at that bus stop now. Look at the two little girls last year at the end of the year got snatched off. We have a perverted society almost.
That's why it's so important to communicate.
And we have a perverted society, so it's not like punishing them, or is it protecting them? Because look at the teacher. Didn't they just the teacher who was the greatest counselor in the school?
Yeah.
Having relationships with girls even in the school. So I think that because of the times, we like there's some things we can't correct. How we know this counselor who helped children get to college and all of this was having affairs with the children in the school?
You don't.
And no, it is not our responsibility. And guess what? Boys are as susceptible as girls. So, it used to be a girl thing. We got to protect our boys too. And sometimes the way we dress them is to protect them. It's not sexualizing them.
I agree.
And that's why I followed our last topic. We've been on an hour. So let's do this one and then maybe solutions.
Okay.
What are some of the things, even our audience, if you may, what are some of the things, some of the solutions that you can think of that you think might help? Especially the two biggest things.
I think effectively communicating with your child, whether you guys have to get a notebook and write back and forth to each other, do it. That's very big, is being able to effectively communicate with each other. Counseling. I know I look down on it, but counseling definitely does work when utilized correctly. You have to be consistent. You definitely have to make sure you have a counselor that you trust and that is for you, for your child. And you have to do the work. If your child does not mesh with that counselor, or your child is telling you they don't feel, switch. If you have to switch therapists 100 times, you do 100 switches until you find that one that your child meshes with, and that the counselor meshes with your child, and they click so that it's effective and it works. Some counselors just aren't for some people, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think the biggest thing, though, is you have to create a village. You have to create a village for not only kids, but you have to create a village for yourself as a parent too. My kids have definitely been blessed with a grandmother. Like, they get sick and tired of me and they say, "Oh, I'm about to call Granny Girl. Let me call my granny because I need to talk to her because I'm about to tell her on you." Well, you go on ahead and tell her on me. They have a godmom. I'm about to call my nanny right now because I need to talk to her about XYZ. So I feel very blessed that their circle, and at school they have teachers that when they get frustrated, they can go to and they can talk to, and the teachers will message me and be like, "Today was a rough day for her, but she came to me, she talked to me, and we were able to calm her down and get her back on track, and she had a great rest of her day." So I just think it's very important to create that village. And sometimes as parents, we think that we are not doing what we're supposed to do and that our kids aren't listening. But when we sit back and watch how they interact, or how they're able to communicate, or how they are able to go to the grandmother, to the godmother, to the teacher, to whoever, that we've created this safe space for them, then you're like, okay, I'm doing something right, because they're not going to friends, they're not going to strangers to get answers, to get help or release. So I think that is important in creating for your child.
And can you read Von's last comment?
Yes. It says, "We need to go back to being a community because it's not always the parents' fault." I agree on that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? They need some more Miss Marys. That was the lady in my block when I was growing up. Yeah. She was standing on the sidewalk waiting for everybody to come home. Like, where's this child? Where's this child? She knew who was the bad men in the neighborhood. I remember that day I was standing on this. I was like your daughters. I was built beautifully, almost perfectly, thank God. And when she see that man coming, go inside and lock your door.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, Vaughn. Vaughn, we appreciate you. You participated all night in the conversation. We thank you, Patricia Harris. We thank you, Nola Reeds, for being here with us, directing us. We surely thank you, Ebony, and we thank you for your participation, coming to talk to us about parenting. I still don't agree that it's always the parent fault. But anyway, thank you for being here, and see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for having me. It has been a pleasure.